Our end of the year podcast is here, and it's over 6 hours long.
Wow, really?
So you can check out the full episode on this channel or wherever you get your podcasts, or check out this highlight video for a small taste of what our industry went through this year and where it's headed. All right, let's dig in. I had an interesting conversation the other day with one of our B2B customers, and they're a company based out of Spain. They do sort of in-stadium graphics for soccer teams in Europe, all around Europe. And they have 20 artists and they have 20 licenses of Cinema 4D. And I asked them, because that's primarily what they wanted training on. They wanted to kind of level up their artists on like rendering and modeling, stuff like that. And I said, yeah, that's great. We got you covered there. We also have our first Blender course coming out next year, and we're building out that curriculum. Are you guys using Blender? And what he said was, some of our artists want to, but for us as a studio, there's an enormous barrier to switching apps. Even if the app has advantages, and being free is a pretty big advantage for a company with a lot of licenses, even if it's free, you do the math, and we don't have a Rolodex of Blender artists the way we have a Rolodex of Cinema 4D artists.
The vast majority of everybody that I know in the industry is still using Cinema, and I say that as a very heavy Blender user. There's kind of a weird line drawn in the sand right now by zealots in both camps. The old heads want only Cinema all the time, and the young bucks really want to say Blender is better than Cinema, which is its own brand of lunacy.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who doesn't own a studio, even thinking about taking your entire staff, and you're not making money for a week or 2 weeks, and it takes a lot longer to learn Blender. Just the money lost, it'll take years and years and years to recoup all that. So the whole Blender is free. Noseman always says, yeah, Blender's free, but my time is not. And that's always what I go back to.
We put out our first Rive course. I think it's the greatest new tool for motion designers of the past 10 years, probably. And the reason I say that is because, and we've kind of talked around this a little bit, what does it take to have a new tool actually get adopted by a majority of artists or studios or companies? And it seems to be there has to be some new capability that you don't have, right? And we're going to talk about a few of them, but there's a lot of apps that have come out in the last couple of years that are really good, but they're just doing something that you can already do. Maybe they're doing a little better. Maybe they're doing it a lot better, but it's not new. Rive's a brand new thing. There's not another app that does what it can do. And I think the challenge that the team has, and they've been doing a really good job with it, the challenge they have is they've got this two-sided marketplace. You need artists who can use it, and you need companies who understand that they should hire artists to do certain things for them. And essentially what Rive lets you do is what Flash used to let you do, but in a much more powerful way. You can design and animate and create interactions and then ship those off as an artist. You don't have to be a developer to do it.
We've started to do a lot of work with Rive. I mean, there's lots of use cases for our software-specific clients for expanding on UI walkthroughs for their brands in digestible ways on their sites that we can do within a launch film or some pieces for social, but it's nice to be able to have that interactive on their site as well to accompany the other content we're making.
I think I've used Rive for about 30% of the projects I worked on this year. It's a great tool with a great team behind it, and it's opening up so many possibilities for motion designers. So I'm really excited to see where it goes next.
You have Rive, which is a very lightweight motion format that doesn't require a plugin, which opens up a ton of new opportunities for animating in different mediums. You can be creating content for mobile apps. You can be animating HUDs for games in Unreal. So if you're a motion designer, and you feel extremely limited by just the video format, you can migrate your skills and you can branch out and you can be doing work for all these different platforms that you've probably never even considered before.
So when I was slow in the beginning of the year, I looked at a ton of Rive tutorials. I was really deeply impressed. And I know I'm not the only one. I am also really impressed with the team of people that they're building over there. And it's that team that really gives me confidence that Rive is something that I want to continue to invest my time in as I have more of it.
So on the same kind of vein as Rive, there is still Lottie, right? And what I said was, I'm a little curious what the future of Lottie is going to be, because Lottie is this amazing technology that was created to basically let After Effects artists play their animations in real time on devices and websites and stuff like that, right? It's a technology that originally just converted an After Effects project into code that could play. And because After Effects is not a tool designed to do that, even to this day, there's just a lot of caveats and weird quirks about how it works and things you have to know. It's not really optimizing the file size as well as it could be. And that's not Lottie's fault. It was a piece of duct tape put on After Effects to solve a problem that just kind of grew and grew and grew, and then everyone started using it. And so since then, you've got tools, and there's this really interesting one called Lottie Lab, which is a cloud-based animation tool. It's pretty bare bones compared to After Effects, but for a web designer or product designer that just wants to animate some simple stuff, you can do it in there and it spits out a Lottie file and you can put that on your website and have animation. What's interesting, and I have to assume this was in reaction to Rive, they built a tool that lets you have interactivity in your Lottie file. Now, the way that works by the nature of Lottie is, the old way is you have to have a timeline with like, okay, when I hover, that's frame 0 to 10. And then when I click, that's frame 10 to 20. And then when I hover off, that's frame 20 to 30. And then you have some logic in your site that plays the correct frames at the right time, right? They built a tool that lets you get a little more sophisticated and actually prototype those interactions. And it spits out a Lottie file and the code that controls that Lottie file so that you can blend between states and you can do some of the things Rive can do. And I was kind of blown away when I saw it. I was like, it's very clever what they came up with and useful. But why would someone go to the trouble of learning to do that when you have Rive now? And currently, the answer is that if you're using After Effects, there's so many tools in it that are not in Rive yet. Rive, as of this recording, it may have it by the time this comes out, but as of this recording, there's no blur in Rive, right? And there's like a lot, there's no effects. There's like a lot of things that are just kind of missing that one day will be there. There's no particles or anything like that. But eventually those are going to come, and the Rive renderer is way better than what Lottie's play off of. The file size is more optimized. So I mean, if I had to make like a really kind of offensive prediction, I would say I don't think people are going to be using Lottie in 10 to 15 years. I think it just goes away and it's in the dustbin of history like Flash. So we just went over a whole bunch of news. Now let's talk about the number 1 and number 2 topics of the year. And the first one is the economy, or the MoConomy. That's not going to stick. I'm going to need a better one next year. But let's talk about the MoConomy.
Business has been similar. I'd say the same pockets. Summer gets slightly slower, fall slightly slower, and the winter gets a little slow too. Everybody at the agencies take vacations. But other than that, I think it's been very on par with 2023.
So 2024 has been a pretty hard year, and I would just qualify it as weird. On the entertainment side, obviously there was a strike that led to a big kind of pause in work there, which we're finally happy to see is starting back up. The brand side, we've noticed a lot of restructuring and holding money.
I might be a bad candidate to respond to this, but it seems to be slightly better. I'd be a boring answer, but we're not assessing any major change in how hard it is or easy it is to get projects. We're just constantly putting out value as much as we can and sharing our process, and it just continues to attract our ideal client.
2023 was a bloodbath for most people. 2024 was a little better, but we were definitely in a defensive mode across the industry. It wasn't a year to take a bunch of big creative risks. I didn't see clients asking for that, and I certainly didn't see studios sticking their necks out too much either. We were all kind of hunkered down, right?
2023 sucked. Okay, so the bar is already set super low to do this comparison. It was the year of postponement, and your project has been pulled. Okay, projects were half as much money last year. They took twice as long to award. More than half of them got postponed or pulled or canceled. So it was the year that punished so many studios. And this is why we saw, I don't know, a dozen or more go out of business late last year or early this year, sadly. So 2024, yes, getting work has been easier.
So 23, obviously, we weren't doing a huge amount of film work. There were some projects spanning, like Mission Impossible, went over the strikes. But generally, we were pretty quiet on the film side. This year, however, both in London and in the US, I would say things have been a lot busier. And it's been good to see the second half of this year where we're doing on-set screen graphics for various different productions that I probably can't name, and we're doing visual effects work. So the team's really busy on that side of things, both in terms of motion graphics and visual effects.
Obviously, we see some of these incredible visuals from artificial intelligence, and I think we just assume that some of the better projects, someone just typed in a prompt and they got the results, and that's not the case. The people that create the best AI projects have underlying skills that allow them to create incredible projects. So the motion designers at School of Motion who understand the fine-tuned mechanics of animation and visual storytelling and composition and color and all of these core design fundamentals that help you to tell compelling stories, it's those types of people that are really going to thrive as AI becomes more common.
AI output by itself is a bit like fast food. It does the job, but it doesn't do it particularly well. It can be useful though, for example, like pre-made pie crust. So if we use AI as one step in a multi-step process, we can get interesting results.
The thing is, I do think that something that isn't being considered though is that the nature, we're trying to say, can you make movies or can you replace movies with AI? The answer is, of course, right now is no. But the question is, can AI generated content be equally entertaining for the people who want to see that, right? And I think about like what I watched as a kid or what I watched as an adult versus what my kids watch. I remember coming home, this is years ago, came home, my daughter was watching pancake making, like interesting pancake, like with faces and stuff like that on YouTube. And I was like, what are you watching? She's like, I'm watching make pancakes. And I'm like, Jesus, I was like, when I came home from school, I could either watch Thundercats or Mask. That was my choice, right? Or soap operas. Like, this is what was on TV. And so what is considered entertainment is now changing enough that Ben Affleck is not wrong that like craft is knowing how to start, not knowing it's about not knowing when to stop. But that's also assuming the audience wants to see stuff like that. And what I see people watching on YouTube as entertainment, like getting my kids to sit down and watch a show is way harder. They like to watch YouTube. That stuff comes in and moves out. It's very quick. It's niche and it's what they want. Like, you're never going to get that out of Hollywood. So the question is, can AI fill a market that like the expense of Hollywood can't fill? And the answer is probably yeah, maybe not yet, but very close to it. They're going to be able to use AI to generate short form content that is just what these young people want to watch. And I mean, like, kids who are growing up, and then that's what they're going to be looking for as they get older. Like I see this, as my son is only recently, he's 13. He's only recently started really watching TV shows and getting into them. But until last year, I don't think he really ever sat down to watch a series. He just wasn't that into it. He was much more into YouTube.
We actually asked companies, all the people that contributed to this episode, was it easier to find freelancers this year? And a lot of them said, yeah, actually, like it's been much easier. And freelancers are better this year about saying, hey, I'm available. Although they are saying that they're starting to get challenges to holds and stuff like that.
The freelance market, thankfully, has been really strong. A lot of people are available. A lot of people are available on short notice. That's really been able to help us deal with all these very last minute requests and quick turnarounds.
Overall, we've noticed that artists are more available than usual, making it easier to find the right talent as compared to 2020, 2022. That is starting to change a little bit as we're kind of getting into Q4.
It's been an interesting year where people that I felt like we could never book are suddenly available, or people we knew as staff went freelance. As far as staffing a project, though, it really is, to me, a luck of the draw of timing. When you're busy, strangely, then in a Murphy's Law way, it seems like everybody else is busy too. So I can't say it's, there's a glut or a feeling of like, wow, this is really spectacularly different, except that I do feel that there's been long stints where people have been out of work or we've been a little slower than usual. So, and that's hard to deal with. You always want to hear the whole industry is doing well and that everybody's busy.
So I was recently talking to our head of talent, who has an amazing pulse on what's happening in the industry. He is staffing everything that's happening at Scholar. So that's design, animation, live action, VFX, edit. He's talking to everyone. And he agreed that it has been easier to find the right artists. Over the past several years, a lot of folks have moved around due to remote work opportunities. So, of course, we still definitely have competition when it comes to booking super senior, top tier artists. However, we have been seeing a lot more availability in mid-level and junior artists. And honestly, this is pretty exciting because we've been able to work with a bunch of new folks who we've had our eye on for a long time, and things just never really aligned before. So that's really amazing.
Check out the full episode on this channel or wherever you listen to podcasts and get comfy because it's hefty. Thank you so much for being a part of the School of Motion community in 2024, and we can't wait to keep hanging out with you in 2025. So until next time.